For this film project, I chose to highlight the fight to save the Natterjack toad. This amphibian is only found on a few protected sites within the UK. Cumbria is home, in turn, to a majority of the Natterjack populations left in the country. In order to achieve this, I visited Sandscale Haws, a protected area of prime Natterjack habitat on the southwest coast of Cumbria. During the course of this film, I will ask questions to two Natterjack experts about various subjects surrounding the species, from habitat requirements, conservation, and what the future holds. Later on in my film, I will explore the site and hope to catch a glimpse of this elusive creature for my very first time.
Well, Cumbria has still got a lot of the habitats that Natterjacks like. I mean, they're a coastal species for a start, generally a coastal species, and Cumbria's got a big coastline, a long length of coastline, but it's also got a lot of intact sand dune systems, like the one we're at here today, Sandscale Haws. There's various other good dune systems dotted up the coast from here, and there's another one south in Barrow as well. In Britain, they're right at the northwest edge of their range, so as a species they're right at the top of the range really, so the climate isn't actually particularly good for them. I mean, in Spain for instance, they're much more common because the tadpoles and everything can develop faster if the weather's hotter, so the hotter the climate the better, and Britain with its cooler climate means that things don't go as well for the Natterjacks here. They're kind of, in a way, they're kind of clinging on here.
Mostly because they're a niche species, so Natterjacks require very specific conditions. They need really short grassland like some of the areas around here, and also bare sand to hunt their prey, so they can actively chase after beetles and small invertebrates. They also need temporary pools that dry up each year so that you don't get a build-up of invertebrate predators, and they need a lot of sunlight on the pools as well, so shaded pools are really bad for them. So they're quite fussy, really, is the answer.
There could be, yeah. I mean, in certain parts of the country, that's another thing about Cumbria. We've got our big dune systems because there haven't been any development in them really. I mean, there are little sections of the coast where there is, but in other parts of the country, like North Wales, for instance, there's a lot of holiday parks, caravan parks that have eaten into the dune systems there, and so the habitat's been fragmented. So, yeah, I mean, urban growth is a problem. Any sort of development is a problem for Natterjacks, but then saying that, they do occur on industrial sites as well. They used to occur at Millham Ironworks just across the estuary here, which was actually a working ironworks, and they were breeding on the site. Same up in Workington, and then there were a few sand quarries dotted around the place that the Natterjacks loved because conditions were changing all the time in the quarries. It was producing just the right conditions for them. Yeah, so I mean, development is a problem, but Natterjacks can actually cope with some sort of industrial activity as well.
Yeah, I think so, and iconic species are important. You need them to, on one level, to get people involved and interested and to care about conservation. So Natterjack toads, for example, around here, the most popular events we do are the Natterjack toad walks that we do each year, and then that gives us an opportunity to get a wider conservation message across. They are a very interesting species that people like to see, and so if you highlight what's happening to the Natterjack toad, it then gives you an opportunity to highlight wider issues that are affecting species that aren't as interesting to people that don't have that specialist interest. I think it's a bit of both really. There's one theory that Natterjacks were more widespread immediately after the last ice age, and then as the habitats changed and Britain basically became very wooded, woodland's no good for Natterjacks, so they would have been squeezed out of a lot of habitats, and so that's why the extant populations ended up around the coast, because that's where conditions remained favourable for them. It's really difficult to answer that. Nature reserves and the legal protection afforded to Natterjacks has definitely played an important part in making sure that we haven't lost them. Whether we would have lost them totally by now or not, you can't say, but I think the situation would be worse than it is, without a doubt.
Yeah, currently the situation is looking very rosy. From my work in Cumbria, I mean, I work with a lot of the farmers who are going into these environmental schemes, and they're actually doing positive work for Natterjacks on their land, in the areas where the habitat's suitable, obviously, which is generally the coastal strip all the way from Barrow up to Carlisle. We're actually going to try and link up those populations, because before they were isolated and there was no movement between them, but with the provision of breeding areas in between those populations, or new breeding areas, and we're hoping to link them up, and genetically that will be a massive boost for Natterjacks, because it means that populations don't get isolated and then inbred and then less genetically robust.
Yeah, we're potentially going to be involved in a reintroduction on Sandscale, a site down in Lancashire at Cochrane Marsh, which was the traditional Natterjack toad site, where they died out basically through lack of management, so the habitat became unsuitable for them. That area is now in an agri-environment scheme, and the habitat is basically getting back to what it should be to be able to support Natterjacks. So providing we can tick all the boxes and Natural England are happy, then we'd very much like to be a part of that, and we will donate spawn from Sandscale to be taken down there. Hopefully it will be a successful reintroduction. It's a tough question. There are so many different factors that could potentially affect them. You've got the chytrid fungus, which is affecting amphibians right across the world. It's present here in the UK. At the moment, the indications are it's not having a big impact, but we don't know whether that's likely to change in the future. You've got all the issues associated with global warming, and with Natterjacks being predominantly a coastal species in the UK, if sea levels do rise, then we're going to have to look at basically recreating habitat, or making sure for dune systems there are areas where they can move back to as the sea level rises. So there's all sorts of factors involved, and yeah, it's going to be quite a lot of effort is going to be needed to ensure that Natterjacks do survive.
After the interview is complete, I explore the site with Neil. This gives me an opportunity to film what his job entails. He visits each pool on the reserve and scans the surface looking for Natterjack bog spawn. As he explores the water, he has to tread lightly so that any clumps he detects are not destroyed. Each pool is located in different areas throughout the dune system. Some are sheltered more than others, and this helps give each pond its own characteristics as well as its own species. Once he has located some spawn, he counts how many eggs there are, the developmental stage in which they are at, and an overall number for each pool. He notes them down in his notebook and compares them with other results. This can be a time-consuming task as Neil starts in the day, and by the time he is finished, dusk is fast approaching. As the sun is setting, we take up a vantage point. Neil begins to play a recording of a Natterjack call in order to locate the presence of any toads. After getting a response, we move to the edge.
Probably tell we're a bit closer.
After a brief response from the Natterjacks, Neil decides to try and locate a toad around the edge of the pool, as this is where the strongest response is coming from. Trying to locate a Natterjack with a head torch proves to be challenging due to the toads becoming silent when Neil approaches. To increase the chance of finding one, Neil decides to explore the edge whilst playing the call on his stereo. Having located a possible Natterjack spot, Neil begins to explore some vegetation on the edge of the pool, but not being able to positively locate a toad, Neil decides to move to the scrapes and coastal pools for a better chance of finding a natterjack. With the night in full flow, Neil is able to spot a toad on one of the pools located on the coast. He catches the natterjack and brings it up to dry land, where I am able to film my first wild natterjack toad. This first toad is a male, probably hoping to mate with one of the many females that are located around the pools. Other male natterjacks are busy calling in the background. As this close-up shows the characteristic, which sets natterjacks aside from common toads, the yellow stripe running down the centre of its back. You may also notice this toad prefers to walk rather than hop. This feature gives the animal its other name, the running toad. After a short time filming, we set him free so he can hopefully mate. We then set out and explored the rest of the coastal pools, shortly after stumbling upon a chance encounter of two natterjacks mating. This in turn would make a fitting end to my film project, and I was so captivated by the discovery, I even forgot about the blade of grass which was straight through the film. And with this, my journey is over, until I can hopefully film the offspring.